I never thought I'd be the one to hack into my wife's phone. 15 years of marriage had built a foundation of trust that I believed was unshakable. Until the day I found that burner phone hidden inside her yoga mat, one she claimed she never used anymore. My name is Mark Lawson. I'm 43, still in decent shape from the 5-mile runs I force myself to do 3 times a week. Natalie and I met in law school, both of us ambitious and starry-eyed about our future. Now I'm a partner at Davidson & Reed, while she runs the marketing department at Phoenix Investments. We have twin boys, Alex and Ryan, both 12, who inherited my height and their mother's quick wit. The first sign something was off came when Natalie started receiving calls that would make her step outside our home to answer. "Just work stuff," she'd say, waving it off with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The late nights at the office became more frequent. Her girls' nights with her college friend Vanessa turned into weekend getaways with vague itineraries. I'm not the jealous type and ever have been. I trusted Natalie completely. But when you've been with someone for 15 years, you can feel when something shifts. The change wasn't dramatic at first, just small moments that seemed off. The way she'd angle her laptop screen away when I entered the room. How she started taking her phone into the bathroom during showers, something she'd never done before. The new lingerie I discovered in her drawer with tags still attached. Items I'd never seen her wear. Our sex life had dwindled over the years, something I'd attributed to our busy careers and raising energetic twin boys. But looking back, the decline had accelerated dramatically in the past 6 months. The same time frame when Phoenix Investments hired Robert Carson as their new VP of Client Relations. The burner phone changed everything. I found it accidentally while looking for our old tax documents in the closet. It fell out of her yoga mat while I was moving things around. A basic model, nothing fancy. The kind you use when you don't want a digital trail. I stood frozen, the phone heavy in my hand like a grenade with the pin pulled. I knew I should put it back, respect her privacy, trust her as I always had. But something inside me had already shifted the foundation cracking beneath my feet. I turned it on. No password. Arrogance or carelessness, I wasn't sure which. The phone contained only one contact, listed simply as R. The texts were like daggers. "Can't wait to hold you again. These weeks without you are torture." And the most damning, "The Cancun villa is booked. Vanessa will cover for us like last time." Vanessa. The same friend who was supposedly accompanying Natalie on her upcoming girls' retreat to Cancun. My hands shook as I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. That night at dinner, Natalie chatted excitedly about her upcoming trip. Just what we girls need: 5 days of sun and margaritas. She even showed me photos of the resort they'd booked. The family photos on our mantle seemed to watch us accusingly as she lied straight to my face. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You'll be okay with the boys for a few days, right? Order pizzas, watch those action movies I can't stand." I smiled, amazed at how natural it felt to mirror her deception. "We'll be fine. You deserve a break." That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing through 15 years of memories. Our wedding day, when she'd looked at me with such certainty. The terrified joy on her face when we learned we were having twins. Christmas mornings, summer vacations, everyday moments that had built our life together. Had it all been a lie? Or had something changed? When had I become insufficient? I called Ethan Wright the next day. We'd been friends since college, and he owed me after I'd helped him through his own divorce 3 years earlier. As a private investigator, he had resources I didn't. "I need to know where she's really going," I told him, my voice steadier than I felt. Ethan didn't judge. He just asked for details: flight information, credit card access, her social media logins. I gave him what I could. 2 days later, he called back. "Your wife and Vanessa are booked at the Sunset Palms Resort," he confirmed. "But there's another reservation under Vanessa's name at Villa Paraiso, a private property, about 20 minutes from the resort. And there are 2 men joining them, Robert Carson and Michael Dyer." The names meant nothing to me, but Ethan wasn't finished. Robert Carson is listed as VP of Client Relations at Phoenix Investments, same company as Natalie. My stomach tightened. And the villa? 5 bedrooms, private pool, secluded beach access, $1,200 a night. I hung up and went straight to our medicine cabinet. Inside Natalie's toiletry bag, packed and ready for her trip, I found a small zippered pouch. Inside were 12 packs of condoms and a box of morning-after pills. For a girl's retreat, I sat on the edge of the bathtub. The evidence of her betrayal spread out before me. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to see her face when she realized she'd been caught. But another part, a colder, more calculated part I barely recognized, wanted more. Wanted irrefutable evidence. Wanted her to feel the same devastation I was feeling. I didn't confront her, didn't throw the bag at her and demand answers. Instead, I called my mother and arranged for the boys to stay with her for a week. "Dad's got a surprise work trip," I told them, forcing enthusiasm into my voice as they packed their gaming consoles and soccer gear. The next move was booking my own flight to Cancun, leaving a day after Natalie's. Ethan helped me secure a room at a small hotel near Villa Paraiso and provided me with state-of-the-art surveillance equipment that would make any spy movie proud. "Just be careful," he warned. "What you find might be worse than you imagine." I thought I was prepared. I wasn't. The morning Natalie left, she kissed me goodbye at the door, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Don't burn the house down," she teased, the lie so smooth it almost seemed sincere. "Have fun," I replied, matching her tone. "You deserve it." When she'd gone, I methodically went through our bedroom, looking for anything else she might be hiding. In the back of her side of the closet, I found shopping bags containing new bikinis, lingerie, and dresses I'd never seen, all recently purchased from upscale boutiques. The total came to over $2,000. In her desk drawer, I discovered a small notebook. Inside were hotel confirmation numbers, flight details, and a list of restaurants and activities in Cancun. But most telling was a small handwritten note tucked inside the back cover. "Remember our story spa day Tuesday, fishing excursion Wednesday, shopping Thursday." Same as last time. She'd been rehearsing her lies. 24 hours later, I boarded my own flight to Cancun. The entire journey felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life implode from a distance. The rational part of my brain kept asking what I hoped to accomplish. Did I really need to see my wife with another man to understand that my marriage was over? But the wounded part, the part that couldn't comprehend how 15 years could be discarded so easily, needed to witness it. Needed proof that couldn't be explained away or minimized. My first day in Cancun was spent setting up. Ethan's contact, a local named Diego, drove me to positions overlooking Villa Paraiso. From there, with a high-powered lens, I could see the sprawling property with its infinity pool facing the Caribbean Sea. I spotted Natalie almost immediately, wearing a red bikini I'd never seen before, sipping champagne by the pool. Next to her was Vanessa, but my eyes were drawn to the man sitting across from them. Tall, tanned, with a confidence that radiated even from a distance. Robert Carson, I presumed. His hand rested casually on Natalie's thigh as they laughed. I documented everything. Every touch, every kiss, every moment that destroyed 15 years of what I thought was a solid marriage. The second man appeared later, gravitating toward Vanessa with the same familiarity Robert showed toward my wife. That night, from my vantage point, I could see into the villa's main room through the glass walls. The four of them danced, drank, and eventually paired off. Robert led Natalie upstairs, his hand possessively on the small of her back. I forced myself to take photos, each click of the camera like a physical pain in my chest. Sleep was impossible. I lay in my hotel room, images of Natalie and Robert burned into my mind. The way she'd looked at him, desire mixed with adoration, was a look I hadn't seen from her in years. Had she ever looked at me that way? Or had I been a convenient choice, a stable partner to build a life with, while she yearned for something more exciting? I spent 3 days gathering evidence, each day worse than the last. Romantic walks on private beaches, intimate dinners on the villa's terrace. Natalie looked happier than I'd seen her in years, completely wrapped up in her parallel life with a man who wasn't me. On the third night, unable to sleep and torturing myself with the photos I'd taken, I decided to dig deeper. Using the hotel's business center computer, I started researching Robert Carson more thoroughly. What I found surprised me. Robert wasn't just any executive. He was a serial workplace predator. 3 complaints of sexual harassment at his previous company, all settled quietly. A pattern of dating subordinates, then discarding them when he got bored. And most tellingly, a reputation for targeting married women specifically. Was Natalie just another conquest? Was she risking everything, our marriage, our family, her career, for a man who saw her as nothing more than a temporary diversion? I dug into Michael Dyer next. He and Robert had a history of sharing vacation conquests, according to a blog post written by a woman who claimed to have been involved with both of them 2 years earlier. The post detailed how they used work trips and conferences as covers for their affairs, often involving multiple women. The image they projected, successful, charming businessmen offering excitement and passion, was a carefully constructed facade. Beneath it were two predators who viewed women as collectibles rather than people. Did Natalie know? Did she care? Or was the allure of forbidden excitement enough to blind her to the reality? On the fourth day, I'd seen enough. I had Diego drive me to Sunset Palms Resort, where Natalie and Vanessa were supposedly staying. At the front desk, I played the concerned husband. "I'm trying to surprise my wife, Natalie Lawson. She's staying here with her friend." The receptionist checked the system. "Yes, Mrs. Lawson and Miss Bennett checked in 4 days ago," she smiled. "Would you like me to call their room?" "No, that would ruin the surprise," I said. "Can you tell me if they've been using the facilities?" My wife was excited about the spa. More typing. "It doesn't look like they've used their room keys since check-in day." Her smile faltered slightly. "That's a bit unusual. They'd paid for rooms they weren't using, just to maintain the lie." That evening, I took the final step. I had hundreds of photos now, time-stamped and geotagged. I created a private online gallery and sent the link to Natalie's work email, her personal email, and to the HR department at Phoenix Investments. The subject line: Natalie Lawson's Real Cancun Retreat. I included photos of the condom packs she'd packed, screenshots of the texts from the burner phone, and documentation of the dual reservations. I copied Robert's wife, whose contact information Ethan had provided. I also sent everything to our family lawyer, with a note requesting him to initiate divorce proceedings. For good measure, I included links to the sexual harassment complaints and blog posts about Robert and Michael's predatory history. If Natalie was going to throw away our marriage for these men, she deserved to know exactly who they were. Then I waited at Sunset Palms Resort, sitting in the lobby with a clear view of the entrance. The chaos began 3 hours later. Natalie burst through the doors, her face pale and panicked, Vanessa right behind her. They didn't notice me at first, rushing to the reception desk and demanding their room keys. When Natalie turned and saw me, she froze. Our eyes locked across the marble lobby. "Mark," she whispered. Not a question, a recognition that her world was collapsing. I stood slowly. "The boys are with my mother. Don't try to contact them until we've spoken with our lawyers." "This isn't what you think," she started, the oldest line in the book. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. 12 packs of condoms for a girl's retreat? I think it's exactly what I think. Her phone began ringing. Then, Vanessa's. The fallout was beginning. Robert's wife got the photos. Vanessa hissed at Natalie. "She's threatening to go to the board of directors." Natalie's composure cracked. "You had no right," she said to me, tears streaming down her face. "You've destroyed everything." "No," I replied calmly. "You did that when you decided our marriage vows were optional. I just documented it." I walked out of the resort, leaving them to deal with the implosion of their carefully constructed deception. On the flight home, I felt hollow, victorious, and devastated in equal measure. I'd won, but what exactly had I won? The boys were confused when I picked them up from my mother's house. They sensed something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them the full truth yet. How do you explain to 12-year-olds that their mother had been living a double life, that she'd chosen another man over her family? "Mom's staying in Cancun a bit longer," I told them, the lie bitter on my tongue. Work stuff came up. The next few days were a blur of lawyer meetings, phone calls, and trying to maintain normalcy for Alex and Ryan. Natalie returned 5 days later, showing up at the house unannounced. She looked exhausted, her usual polished appearance replaced by shadows under her eyes and a defeated posture. "We need to talk," she said. I let her in for the boys' sake, watching as they hugged her with innocent affection. When they went upstairs to finish homework, we sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of family meals, where we'd helped with science projects and birthday cakes, where we'd built a life that now lay in ruins. "I've been placed on administrative leave," she said flatly. "The board is investigating my relationship with Robert as a potential ethics violation." "I'm sorry about your job," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want to see her career destroyed. She looked surprised by my sincerity. "Robert's wife has filed for divorce. She's making accusations about his history with women at the company." "Are they true?" Natalie stared at her hands. "Some of them, yes. I didn't know at first. By the time I found out, I was already." She trailed off. "In love with him?" I supplied. "I thought I was," she admitted. Now I don't know what I was feeling. Flattered, maybe. Excited by the attention. Was I not giving you attention? The question escaped before I could stop it, my composure slipping. "It wasn't that simple, Mark. We became roommates, co-parents. Somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing each other. So instead of talking to me about it, you started sleeping with your boss." She flinched. "I made a terrible mistake. I know that now. A mistake is forgetting to pay the electric bill or missing a parent-teacher conference. This was a series of deliberate choices, Natalie. You planned this. You lied to my face for months." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But please, don't take the boys away. They need their mother." "They needed their mother when you were sneaking off to hotel rooms with Robert too," I said. That didn't seem to matter then. The divorce was quick, but messy. Natalie's lawyer tried to paint me as obsessive and controlling, claiming I'd violated her privacy and conducted illegal surveillance. My lawyer countered with evidence of her infidelity and the fact she'd used marital funds to finance her affair. In the end, the judge had little sympathy for Natalie. I got primary custody of the boys, our house, and most of our assets. Natalie's career at Phoenix Investments imploded when the board received my evidence. Robert Carson was fired too, his wife making sure the scandal followed him to every potential employer. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I got an unexpected visitor. Sandra Carson, Robert's ex-wife, showed up at my door with a bottle of expensive whiskey. "Thought you might need this," she said, her voice husky from years of cigarettes. I know I did. We sat on my back porch watching the sunset, two strangers united by betrayal. Sandra was sharper than I expected, with a dark humor that made me laugh for the first time in months. "They're living together now," she said, twirling the whiskey in her glass. "Robert, and your Natalie. Some apartment in Chicago." I nodded. Natalie had told the boys during her last video call. They'd seemed confused, unsure how to feel about the man who'd helped destroy their family, now trying to be part of it. "Does it bother you?" I asked. Sandra shrugged. "Not anymore. What bothers me is that I wasted 15 years on a man who could throw it all away so easily." She looked at me. "What about you?" "I'm just trying to hold it together for my boys," I admitted. "Some days are better than others." What started as a commiseration session turned into regular meetings. Sandra understood what I was going through in a way no one else could. We weren't romantically both too damaged for that, but we formed a bond built on shared experience. She told me about Robert's previous affairs, how she'd suspected for years but could never prove anything, how he'd gaslit her, making her feel crazy for questioning his late nights and unexplained expenses. "When I got your email with the photos, I felt relieved," she confessed. Finally, I wasn't crazy. Finally, I had proof. I understood perfectly. The validation that came with confirmation, even when that confirmation destroyed your world. Sandra had 2 daughters, both teenagers, who were struggling with their father's abandonment. We started arranging outings together, the 6 of us, finding comfort in our improvised family of broken pieces. Alex and Ryan bonded with Sandra's girls, Emma and Grace, finding solidarity in their shared experience. Watching them together, I realized that good things could emerge from even the worst situations. 6 months later, Sandra called me in a panic. "Mark, have you seen the photos?" she demanded. "What photos?" "Check your email. Someone sent them to me this morning. It's from an anonymous account." The email contained dozens of new photos, Natalie and Robert in Paris, at exclusive restaurants, shopping for jewelry, But they weren't alone. There was another couple with them, Vanessa and Michael Dyer, the other man from the villa. "They're flaunting it," Sandra said, her voice tight. "Like they got away with something." I studied the photos more carefully. "Look at this," I said, noticing something in the background of one image. "That restaurant, it's the Silver Palm in Miami. These aren't old photos. They were taken last weekend." "So?" Natalie told the boys she couldn't have them last weekend because she had to work. A cold anger settled in my stomach. She was still lying, still prioritizing her affair over her children. I called Ethan again. "I need one more favor," I said. 24 hours later, Ethan confirmed what the photos suggested. Natalie, Robert, Vanessa, and Michael had formed some kind of foursome, traveling together, partying together. They'd booked another private villa, this time in the Bahamas. For the following month's same weekend, Natalie was supposed to have the boys for spring break. I contacted my lawyer immediately. The judge was not pleased to hear about Natalie's continued deception, especially when it involved her parenting time. Her visitation rights were restricted to supervised visits until further notice. When Natalie found out, she was livid. She showed up at my house unannounced, pounding on the door until I opened it. "You've taken everything from me," she hissed. "My career, my reputation, and now my sons." I stared at the woman I'd once loved, now a stranger consumed by anger and entitlement. "You chose Robert over your family," I said quietly. "The boys needed their mother, and you chose weekend getaways instead." "We're in love," she shot back. "Something you wouldn't understand. Our marriage was dead long before Robert. Then you should have ended it honestly. Instead, you lied and sneaked around behind my back." "Because I knew you'd take the boys from me." I shook my head. "I never wanted that. I wanted our family to stay intact. You're the one who broke it." The fight continued until Alex and Ryan appeared in the hallway, drawn by the shouting. The look of disappointment on their faces as they saw their mother raging broke something inside Natalie. She left without another word. 3 weeks later, I received a letter from Natalie's new lawyer. She was relinquishing her parental rights. The boys were devastated, but not surprised. They'd already felt her pulling away, prioritizing her new life over them. "Does Mom hate us?" Ryan asked one night as I tucked him in. "No," I said firmly. "Your mom loves you very much. She's just lost right now. Lost in a way that makes it hard for her to be the mother you deserve." "Will she find her way back?" Alex asked from the other bed. I wanted to lie, to give them hope. But I'd promised myself I wouldn't become someone who casually dismissed truth for convenience. "I don't know, buddy. I hope so." The next morning, I found the boys huddled over Alex's laptop at the kitchen table. "What are you guys up to?" I asked, pouring coffee. They exchanged glances. "We're looking at boarding schools," Ryan said finally. My stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "We thought maybe it would be easier for you if we weren't here all the time," Alex explained, his voice small. "Then maybe you could date and stuff without having to worry about us." I set my coffee down and pulled them both into a hug. "Listen to me," I said fiercely. "You two are the best things in my life. I'm not looking to date and stuff right now, and even if I were, you would never be in the way. We're a team, the three of us." "But Mom left because of us," Ryan said, the words barely audible. "No," I said firmly. "Mom left because of Mom, not because of you, not because of me. The choices she made were hers alone, and they reflect nothing about your worth." That night, after they were asleep, I sat on the back porch with a glass of whiskey, thinking about the damage that had rippled outward from Natalie's betrayal. The boys' belief that they were somehow responsible. My own lingering questions about what I could have done differently. The next day, I called a family therapist and made appointments for all of us. If we were going to heal, we needed help navigating the wreckage. Dr. Melanie Chen became our guide through the minefield of post-betrayal life. She helped the boys understand that their mother's choices weren't their fault. She helped me see that while the marriage had problems, Natalie's decision to cheat rather than address them was her responsibility alone. "You're allowed to be angry," Dr. Chen told me during one of my individual sessions. "But don't let the anger become your identity." "What should it be instead?" I asked. "A visitor, not a resident," she said simply. Acknowledge it, feel it, then let it move on so you have room for better emotions. A year passed. The boys and I settled into a new normal. I started dating again cautiously. Sandra Carson became a close friend, helping me navigate single parenthood and eventually introducing me to her colleague Julia, a literature professor with a quick smile and endless patience. Julia understood boundaries. She never tried to replace Natalie in the boys' lives, but offered her own unique relationship with the Mun built on shared interests and genuine curiosity about who they were becoming. Then the email arrived. Subject line: "Thought you might want to see this." The sender was anonymous. Inside was a link to a video. Robert Carson, clearly drunk, at some bar in Chicago, bragging loudly about his conquests. "You should have seen the look on her face," he slurred to the men around him. "Mark Lawson's wife sorry. Wife thought we had something special. Like I was going to leave Sandy for her." He laughed. "Natalie was just a good time. Now she's calling me 20 times a day. Had to change my number." I closed the video, feeling no satisfaction, just a hollow sadness for everyone involved. I deleted the email without forwarding it to Natalie. She'd made her choices and was living with the consequences. I didn't need to twist the knife. 2 months later, I got a call from a Chicago hospital. Natalie had been admitted after a suicide attempt. As her emergency contact and the father of her children, they needed me to make decisions about her care. I flew to Chicago that afternoon, leaving the boys with Julia. At the hospital, I found Natalie pale and fragile in a psychiatric ward. She barely resembled the confident, vibrant woman I'd married. "Mark," she whispered when she saw me, "you came." "Of course I came," I said, sitting beside her bed. "What happened, Nat?" She told me everything. How Robert had eventually discarded her, just as he'd done with his other affairs. How Vanessa and Michael had cut her out of their circle. How she'd lost her job, her friends, her reputation. How the solitude and shame had become unbearable. "I have nothing left," she said, tears sliding down her hollow cheeks. "No one." Despite everything, my heart ached for her. "You have the boys," I said gently. "They still ask about you." She closed her eyes. "I gave up my rights. I abandoned them. Legal paperwork can be changed. What matters is whether you're ready to be their mother again consistently, reliably, putting them first." "I don't deserve them," she whispered. "Probably not," I agreed. "But they deserve a mother who wants to be in their lives. Is that you?" The road to rebuilding was long and difficult. Natalie spent 2 months in intensive therapy before returning to Portland. She found an apartment not far from us, and a job teaching at a local community college, far cry from her executive position, but work that gave her purpose. Her reunification with the boys was gradual, supervised at first. They were wary, having been hurt too deeply to trust easily again. But children have an extraordinary capacity for forgiveness when they see genuine effort and change. I didn't fight the process. As angry as I'd been, as deeply as she'd betrayed us, the boys needed their mother. Not the distracted, self-absorbed woman who'd chosen Robert over them, but the mother she was trying to become present, honest, humble. 2 years after Cancun, I stood in our backyard watching Ryan and Alex play soccer with Julia's son from her previous marriage. Julia stood beside me, her hand comfortably in mine. "Any word from Natalie?" she asked quietly. "She called earlier. She's still planning to take the boys camping next weekend, if the weather holds." "You're a good man, Mark Lawson," Julia said, leaning against me. "Not many ex-husbands would be so forgiving." "It's not about forgiving her," I said. "It's about what's best for the boys." Julia squeezed my hand. "The boys are lucky to have you." Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I found myself looking at old family photos. Natalie and I on our honeymoon in Hawaii, the twins' 5th birthday party, Christmas mornings, and summer vacations, moments that were real, despite everything that came after. I put the photos back in their box and closed the lid. The past belonged there acknowledged but contained. The future was what mattered now. The next morning, I took the boys fishing at the lake, something I'd never had time for when I was working 80-hour weeks trying to make partner. Ryan caught his first bass, his face lighting up with pride as I helped him reel it in. Alex found a turtle nest and spent hours researching turtle conservation on his phone. As we drove home, sunburned and tired but happy, Alex asked, "Dad, "Are you going to marry Julia?" The question caught me off guard. "Would that be okay with you guys?" The twins exchanged one of their silent communications. "She makes you laugh," Ryan said. "And she helps us with homework without making us feel stupid. Plus, she makes better spaghetti than you," Alex added with a grin. I laughed. High praise indeed. That night, I called Sandra Carson, now one of my closest friends. "The boys think I should propose to Julia," I told her. "Smart kids," she replied. "What are you waiting for?" "I guess I'm afraid of getting it wrong again." "Mark," Sandra said gently, "Natalie's betrayal wasn't your failure. It was hers. Don't punish Julia for something she didn't do." 3 months later, I proposed to Julia on a weekend trip to Maine. The boys helped plan it, insisting on being there for the moment. When she said yes, they erupted in cheers that echoed across the lake. We married the following spring in a small ceremony with just family and close friends. Ethan was my best man. Sandra brought her new boyfriend, a kind-eyed doctor who looked at her like she hung the moon. I'd invited Natalie, wanting the boys to see that we could coexist peacefully in our new reality. She came with her therapist as a support person, keeping a respectful distance but making an effort to celebrate with the boys. Just before the ceremony, I found a moment to speak with her alone. "Thank you for coming," I said. "It means a lot to Alex and Ryan." She nodded, her eyes clear and present, in a way they hadn't been during the later years of our marriage. "Julia is good for you," she said. "For all of you." "Are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned. "I'm getting there," she replied with a small smile. "One day at a time, like they say in those meetings I attend." After the wedding, life settled into a new pattern. Julia and I built our relationship on honesty and communication, determined not to repeat the mistakes of my first marriage. The boys flourished with the stability of our blended family, while maintaining their rebuilding relationship with Natalie. 5 years after Cancun, I received an email from Robert Carson. The subject line read simply, "Amends." I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity won out. "Mark," it began, "you don't know me, not really, though I played a significant role in destroying your marriage. I've been in recovery for sex addiction for the past 2 years, and part of my program involves making amends to those I've harmed. You and your sons are on that list." The email continued with a detailed apology, acknowledging the pain he'd caused and taking full responsibility for his predatory behavior. He didn't ask for forgiveness or try to justify his actions. He simply owned them. I showed the email to Julia, unsure how to respond. "Do you believe him?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "But if he's genuine, it takes courage to face the damage you've caused." I decided to reply with a simple acknowledgement. "Thank you for your email. I appreciate your honesty and wish you well in your recovery." That evening, watching the sunset from our deck, Julia asked, "Do you ever regret how things played out? The evidence, the exposure?" I thought about it seriously. I regret that the boys had to experience such pain. I regret that they had to learn such harsh lessons about trust and betrayal so young. I looked at Julia. "But I don't regret uncovering the truth. We can't build real happiness on lies." Life continued to evolve. The boys grew into thoughtful young men. Alex, with his analytical mind, headed to MIT to study computer science. Ryan, always the more creative one, chose film school in California. They maintained relationships with both their mother and me, navigating the complexity of loving parents who had hurt each other deeply. 10 years after Cancun, Natalie was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's disease. When she called to tell me, her voice was steady, determined to face this new challenge with the same dignity she'd rebuilt her life with. "The boys don't need to worry," she insisted. "I have good doctors, good insurance." "They'll worry anyway," I said. "They love you." Julia and I invited Natalie for dinner that weekend, wanting to discuss how we could support her through the difficult road ahead. As I watched her with our Son Snow tall, confident 22-year-olds, I realized how far we'd all come from the devastation of betrayal. Natalie had transformed her life, making amends not through words, but through consistent actions and genuine change. I had found happiness with Julia, a relationship built on mutual respect and transparency. The boys had learned that people can make terrible mistakes and still find redemption. that families can shatter and reform into something different, but still valuable. After dinner, when the boys were helping Julia clear the table, Natalie and I found ourselves alone on the porch. "I've been thinking about Cancun a lot lately," she said quietly. "About how arrogant I was, how selfish." "That was a lifetime ago," I said, meaning it. She nodded. "The disease has a way of clarifying things, making you see what really matters." She looked at me directly. "I never properly apologized to you, Mark. Not really. I was too busy feeling sorry for myself." "You don't need to." "I do," she interrupted. "I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I risked our family for something that wasn't even real. And then I abandoned our sons when they needed me most." She took a shaky breath. "I am so deeply sorry for the pain I caused you." In that moment, I realized I had truly forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. The anger that had once consumed me had faded to a distant memory, replaced by something like compassion for the flawed, struggling human she'd been. For the flawed, struggling humans we all are. "I forgive you, Nat," I said simply. "We've all moved on to better places." The irony wasn't lost on me. My pursuit of revenge in Cancun had been driven by pain and anger, but it had ultimately led to healing, not just for me, but for all of us. Natalie had been forced to confront her choices and rebuild herself from the ground up. The boys had learned resilience in the face of family trauma, and I had discovered my capacity for both justice and mercy. As Julia and I watched Natalie drive away that night, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't known I still needed. "You're a good man," Julia said, echoing words she'd spoken years earlier. "I wasn't always," I admitted. "There was a time when I wanted Natalie to suffer as much as I was suffering." "That's human," Julia said. "What matters is that you found your way back to compassion." 6 months later, when Natalie's symptoms worsened, Julia suggested converting our guest house into a space for her. "The boys would want to be close to her during this," she reasoned, "and it would be easier for all of us to help." The woman I'd once plotted elaborate revenge against now lived 50 yards from my back door. Life has a way of writing stories more complex and redemptive than we could imagine. The journey from discovering that burner phone to where we are now spans 15 years, the same length as my first marriage. In that time, I've learned that while trust can be shattered in an instant, rebuilding it is a lifelong process. I've learned that revenge may offer temporary satisfaction, but healing offers lasting peace. Most importantly, I've learned that the families we build after devastation can be stronger than the ones we had before, not despite the cracks, but because of them. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold, treating breakage as part of the object's history rather than something to disguise. Our family, in all its reconfigured complexity, is like that now broken pieces bonded with the gold of hard-earned wisdom. Alex and Ryan visit often, bringing girlfriends and, recently, Alex's fiancée. They spend time with Julia and me, then walk across the yard to sit with their mother, whose body is failing but whose mind remains sharp. They've learned to navigate the terrain of divided loyalty with grace, understanding that love isn't a finite resource to be rationed. Sometimes, when we're all gathered for holidays or celebrations, I catch glimpses of the past in the boys' mannerisms, Ryan's laugh that echoes Natalie's as, Alex's thoughtful frown that mirrors my own. In those moments, I'm reminded that despite everything that went wrong, something beautiful came from our union. If you had told me in Cancun, as I sat photographing my wife with another man, that 15 years later, I would have found peace with her betrayal, I wouldn't have believed you. If you had suggested that the exposure I orchestrated would ultimately lead to healing for everyone involved, I would have dismissed it as naive optimism. Yet here we are. Life rarely follows the scripts we write for it. Sometimes the villain in your story becomes someone worthy of compassion. Sometimes the revenge you seek becomes the catalyst for redemption you didn't know you needed. I no longer think about the burner phone, the condoms, or the secret villa. Those details have faded, replaced by more important memories. The pride in the boys' eyes when they graduated college. The peaceful look on Natalie's face when she sits in the garden on good days. The quiet joy of waking up beside Julia each morning, grateful for the honest love we've built. The foundation I once thought was solid did crumble beneath my feet, but on that cleared ground, we built something more resilient, a family, bonded not just by blood or tradition, but by choice, by healing, and by the understanding that love isn't about possession or appearances. It's about honesty, even when the truth hurts. Especially when the truth hurts. Because only truth, however painful, can lead to genuine healing. And in the end, healing matters more than vengeance, more than pride, more than being right. It's a lesson I learned the hard way. But some lessons are worth the cost. As I write this, sitting on my porch watching the sunset, I can see Natalie through her window, reading a book the boys gave her for her birthday. Julia is inside, making calls about an upcoming lecture series. The dog we adopted 3 years ago snores at my feet. This isn't the life I imagined when I married Natalie. It's not the life I imagined when I exposed her affair. But it's a good life, honest, peaceful, and real. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, that's everything.